Alright, draft science video, yay. Okay. As stated, I can only take this as a sign of I'm nearing the victory lane. Because all the wackos, you know, the wackiest arguments are showing up now. They're just getting lamer and more desperate and sillier, and so can't help but feel good about that. I mean, nothing even close to something, you know, threatening. Alright, so Hofstadter, you know, this push-pull physics thing, who gives a fuck? So he's basically saying there's no controversy anymore. Everybody in physics has accepted push. And those who don't accept the existence of either concept, because to them, you don't need to push or pull anything. You just have a geometry. Geometry does it. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with physics. It's just geometry. It's algebra. Fuck physics. Just silly. Well, anyway, his next video is called Daft Science, Flat Earth is Center of the Universe. Oh, that's not going to be a straw man. Evidence and redshift. Which he doesn't have a hope of making any sense out of spatial redshift. Redshift either happens at the source of the light or at the receiver of the light, but that's it. Can't happen anywhere else. Anyway, fucking idiot. So I just played some of this. I couldn't get through it. It's just such a piece of useless turd. So I just pieced through it. I mean, the general theme is unification isn't important. You know, simplifying physics, uninteresting. We have this really great geometry thing. You know, we have a bunch of graph paper that shows how things move, and that's all you need, because you don't have to explain how something works. And it's not even a force. I mean, gravity is, in opinion, it's not even a force. It's just geometry. You don't need a force then. Geometry takes care of it. Right? It's just so sickly stupid. So if anybody else had come up with this idea, Feynman or somebody else like that, we know this conversation wouldn't be taking place. There wouldn't be this idiotic notion that, oh yeah, unification doesn't mean anything. You know, that wouldn't be taking place. This is all just such bullshit. So, we'll start at 9 seconds or something. Hey, it sounds off. Cool. It's a lot better that way. A lot better.
Pulls anything.
Okay, so he's saying that traditionally there hasn't been any pull conversation at all, and that even Susskind, when he's talking about his drain, that's not a pull, and everything isn't completely ingrained in our psychology to use words like attraction. The Earth is attracted to the sun. All the rhetoric, getting pulled into the sun, getting pulled into a black hole, none of that rhetoric ever existed. That's all a figment of my imagination. And it doesn't have something to do with the fundamental way that physics approaches the problem. Even string theory is a bunch of rubber bands. They went from the inside out again. You know, they went looking for the source in the thing in the middle. It's the whole Earth-centric thing. Ironically, he uses this flat Earth as center of the universe. That's the whole problem with physics. It always tries to go center and never thinks about what the outside is doing. Never outside the box. Always trying to look in the box for the answer.
Who, what, where, when?
Susskind. Every analogy he uses for Einstein, and he's sort of the authority on Einstein, Einstein's field equations, every one of his analogies has something to do with flow down a drain. And clearly the Einstein imagery in 2 dimensions is basically the geometry of a drain. A drain, a well, a gravity well that you fall into. You don't get pushed into it, you fall into it. shit.
Yeah. The Nima Hamed lectures that I've uploaded that says space-time is dead involve...
Okay, so because this Nima Hamed guy says space-time is dead, a guy who believes in multiverses and string theory, by the way, and maybe many fields too. Fieldy, multi-fieldy, versy, stringy thingy. Something like that. He doesn't believe in push gravity. He's not arguing that bent space is dead because he has some simpler solution. His solution is a quantum mechanical, wavy, multiversy, Copenhagen weirdy explanation. His replacement's a piece of shit.
There's no pulling.
Yeah, well, both theories are wrong. Quantum mechanics' obsession with waves and particles in unresolved locations is wrongly premised and silly, and bent space is wrongly premised and silly. They're both wrong. That's why they should never be unified, is because they're both wrong. You shouldn't try to convert one into the other, because they're both bad ideas. Alright, so just think of the obnoxiousness of this premise as if there isn't a entrenched perception in physics of mechanism pulling to create forces like magnetism and gravity. That's what he's arguing. Nobody thinks about magnets getting pushed together.
Einstein's theory of general relativity involves no pulling.
Okay, so again, the whole theory is dependent on the, as Susskind would say, the anti-divergence. That is, lines getting tighter and tighter. So and again, it's always drawn as those tightnesses come down. If that isn't it's the geometry of a drain. So go ahead and say that doesn't implicitly or explicitly imply a pull. A drain doesn't imply a pull. Sure it doesn't. I mean, it's just too silly. Yeah, so we'll just skip ahead a little. Well, I should get the line he used. I'll get the line he uses.
No, it's about in that context. It's about geometry and paths through geometry. It's not.
Oh, it's paths through geometry. So we're not even doing. It's not physics. It's paths through geometry. So everything is a path through geometry. So you don't have to worry about forces anymore. This is just a path through geometry. Magnets are a path through geometry. What a crock of shit.
Even a force.
It's not even a force. See, he just said it. So there's no physicist arguing that it's not a force, in the sense that it does exactly what forces do, which is move shit. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of silly. No, it's very silly. I mean, the idea of whether it's an ether or not an ether is the question. But clearly, it's as much of a force as the magnetic and the rest of them.
Hello? Hello? You've been told this.
Oh, I've been told that one guy argues that bent space should be thrown out. One physicist. And that therefore proves I don't have to do my job anymore. I don't have to argue with physics because he's going to fix it with string theory. No, I don't think so, fat brain. Lumpty Dumpty.
Newton.
Today.
Said gravity's a pulling force. Who the fuck's on about him?
Who the fuck's on about him, whatever that means. That's exactly my point. That was how the people kept thinking. That's how it looks. So that's how they think. And, you know, and I'm just saying that the idea should have occurred to people, as I said quite simply, that pull and push, although the words are similar, you know, four-letter words, just little words. Yeah, pull is a lot different than push. Push is really simple. Pull pull complicated.
Who the fuck is arguing Newton were right with you?
So again, he's arguing that there's some consensus in physics that gravity isn't a pull force, and that it's a push force. And there's no consensus, and string theory is clearly a pull mechanism. Rubber bands, that's pull. You have to stretch the rubber band for it to pull you in. Bullshit.
So yeah, bravo. Pulls are shit. We heard it already. Forget about it. No one...
Right. Forget about the fact that if you think about it as a push force, and then polarization is already something you know about. If you combine those two things, push force and polarization, you explain magnetism. And once you explain magnetism, you basically explain electricity and the nuclear forces. So you're done. You've unified physics. But don't bother with that, says Hofladay. Don't bother doing the thing, accomplishing the thing Einstein spent the last half of his life pursuing. That would be silly. The holy grail of physics. Don't bother. It's not worth it. Nobody's interested. If it's you who finds it, that is. That's all he's saying. If it's you, nobody's interested. Fuck you.
Not saying anything about pulls. I mean, a couple of videos ago, you was like, if there was just this one thing, I'm so great for just realizing.
Yes, apparently, again, I've kind of laughed at it, but it's kind of funny that apparently you're all so fucking stupid that I have to discover all the obvious facts of life. So you assholes can't figure out any of them. Not any of them. I have to win every fucking event. And you can't win any. Because you're all so fucking stupid. And religious.
The pulls is infinitely more complex than pushes. Yeah, well done. Well done. Who the fuck's arguing it?
Okay, so again, he's saying that physics isn't arguing the exact opposite. That every device they create is some sort of mechanism that has an origin. Pulling.
I've talked about it. I've not made a specific video.
Oh, who cares? I'll speed this up.
But the general relativity equation, which has a geometric intuitive field, has been constructed out of something called entropy and information principles about it.
Entropy and information principles. Einstein never said anything about any fucking information principles, so that's just a crock of shit on its face. Hey.
This time. About from quantum mechanical information entropy principles. I'll attach a video, a guy who did it. Yeah? Look it up.
Oh, why should I? No, I don't have to do that. A guy who did it. Just like your Admind guy who sits there and says Ben space should be replaced with string multiverses. Fuck you.
Look something up and remember it.
Remember what? Is it a push theory, asshole? Does it have a moving ether, or does it have some other stupid field? Fields that don't have any movement in them will never explain magnetism. Magnetism will never be explained until you account for it with a real moving force, because that's what's creating the magnetism. The moving force has the magnetism. When it's polarized, it's magnetism. When it's not, it's just benign gravity. So you don't see it. And until the theory says that, then you can say they already did it. But they didn't already do it, and you know it, you fucking whatever the fuck you are. You fucking piece of shit. I mean, to sit there and pretend that physics has already discovered this solution is just fucking goddamn idiotic.
About entropic gravity, Wikipedia, it's there. It's been done.
Entropic relativity. It's done. It's there. It's all finished now because this guy says entropy takes care of it, whatever that means. Entropy involving what particles, what exact physical thing that's creating pressure. If you don't have something that has energy in it, Again, you can't create the nuclear force. You can't create magnetism. You have to have a force that actually has substance, E in it. It has to have E in it.
And
if you just use the known particles without any of the E, then you don't have any explanation for where the energy comes from to push the Earth into the sun, or to make magnetism convey energy to a conductor.
Just like general relativity's Bohr equations have a geometric feel to them, entropy has a...
It has no energy component but the things you have in it moving. And if you don't include in the things that are moving the quanta that are creating all of the movement, then you're missing a big part of the E.
Sea of particles feel. Whenever people describe entropy, usually they'll talk about, well, not whenever, but one of the classic explanations about entropy is about disarrangement and random atoms in the gaseous form, whether they can collect over here and this, that and the other.
Yes, so it's not an energy equation, doesn't really have anything to do with Earths moving into suns or magnets moving electrons in a conductor.
So the entropic idea of general relativity and gravity, and that actually there are other ways of generating the Einstein general relativity equations from, I forget, but there are. And I've spoken
Oh yeah, yeah. So it was so important to you, and I must go look up these links that you can't even fucking remember. Oh, that's just a brilliant argument. And what's this all about anyway? Well, what's your argument? Oh, general relativity has a whole bunch of different descriptions. So you're just basically validating my very point that physics is so convoluted and so uncertain about everything that they have created a whole bunch of multi-theories, okay? Because none of what they're saying actually makes sense. None of it is good enough. So they keep redrawing it in 7 million versions.
But that insight into entropic gravity has a feel of, an intuitive feel and similarities of the stage gravity.
Again, in what way? In what way does it account for the movement with a factual force? So show me where entropy alone creates force, because it doesn't.
In Mendon gravity, no pulls.
No force. Again, so they have these Tinkerbell explanations. So now it's this geometry. It's geometry. So every time there's a force necessary, you just say, well, just follow the geometry. You don't have to have a force. You don't have to have a physical explanation. It's just geometry. Bullshit. Your geometry can't even be drawn or modeled as an actual geometry in 3 dimensions. You can't draw whatever the Earth is sliding on. The bent space slide, you can't draw it. Beyond drawing converging lines. So that's all you have to do. Just draw converging lines that match the r squared, and there you're done. You've explained gravity. No more work required. Just draw two lines, make them converge, and make the arc the same as the inverse square law, and you're done. There, did my job, explain gravity. I gave you 2 lines and a little bit of geometry. There, physics is all done. You're just such a shithead.
Stop fucking going on about it.
No, I'll keep going on about the fact that I did find a unification theory that actually works. And I'm proud of that, in a way. I'm at least acknowledging the fact that that's what happened. And you don't want to acknowledge that that's what happened, go ahead. But if I'm proven right, and you're going to still say it's a non-event, if I am actually right, and you can honestly say to yourself, that's a non-accomplishment, actually doing what Einstein spent 40 years trying to do but couldn't, is a non-accomplishment. I don't believe you think that. I don't think that's anywhere close to an honest appraisal of the circumstance. And it just demonstrates how petty you are, how desperately petty you are. You fucking piece of shit.
Yeah. To be continued. Stop fucking going on about
Yeah,
evidence.
fuck you know, I'm going to keep going on about your stupid religion. Your stupid clinging to stupid, idiotic, archaic notions of reality. Because you can't look outside the box and say, maybe there's something else doing it. You fucking information and entropy. Fuck you, you idiots. You're not even close. Colder, multiverse, colder. You just keep going. Colder and colder and colder. You can't, you're the worst bloodhounds in the universe. You just keep sniffing out the wrong fucking answer. Ugh. Actually hot in here, but it's getting quite cold outside. Yes, I should let the cold in. Ugh. But anyway, I don't like cold. So some comments. Ugh, people are just so stupid. Yes, we'll do the next holiday in the next video, but that one should be a winner too. That'll be the last one I'll do. I mean, I'm done listening to any other of his videos, and now his physics videos are useless also. He's not making an argument for anything real. He's just arguing that physics is just geometry. Once you draw a triangle, you've done your job. It's all over. The triangle explains gravity. Two converging lines. Well, let me draw two converging lines. There we go. And this is r squared, we'll say. Okay. There. Gravity's done. There it is. All done. Fuck that. Anyway. Alright, case for reality. Who's about done here also. Diffraction and refraction are different things. It doesn't matter. In the case of a beam splitter, you're sort of stuck with both events a little bit. Because it's a change in the medium, obviously. And it's also this interference with the physical object problem, the small aperture problem, where surfaces are encroaching, and that causes diffraction. And then you refract through the material. So yes, it's really the same thing but different. But it doesn't really matter. The one we're talking about is the concept of diffraction. Alright, red light gets dispersed more than violet light when it passes through a diffraction grating, but the opposite occurs in a prism. Well, that's because of what side it is on the angle. But again, so yes, that's one of the facts that have to be argued here, is which way, when you have a slit, a single slit, which way does the light really bend? Does it bend around the corner, or does it bend off the corner? And that's sort of an interesting question. So yes, the argument we've made is that in diffraction it's going this way, and in refraction it's going this way. Okay. But both these are explained as wave phenomenon, by the way. No, and they're also explained as particle phenomenon. Newton had perfectly rational explanations that are perfectly valid. And cannot, he says, and cannot be explained when light is treated as a particle. Bullshit. No, there's no counter argument. There's just people chose, as I've pointed out. They've chosen an answer. There's nothing outstanding about this silly Huygens answer. Huygens' explanation is silly, frankly. An infinite number of little wavelets create the diffraction. I mean, it's silly. The refraction. Sorry, no sale. The fact that the reflective index changes depending on the wavelength of the light is certainly an infinitely more rational explanation. Okay. One should observe that particles, so superior minds answer, the matter is waving. One should observe that particles, the matter is waving. I don't know why he's saying that. Then a dash. And interactions occur by absorptions and readmissions, so to speak. The interactions happen on the surface. That's where it happens. So, I mean, I'm going to argue that the transition through the surface is where all the action is. And once that happens, there's no further bending of anything. Not by bouncing off or bending through. Okay, so that part's a little bit alright. Yeah, I just, superior mind doesn't, I don't find this answer at all. Doesn't do much for me. You know, solitary emissions should never produce interference patterns. Well, obviously, they'd have to interfere with themselves, which is a silly notion. So, but that's not their argument. They have special radar that interferes with itself. Unless the pattern is the result of an interaction with something that does wave, that wouldn't be a single object, a solitary emission anymore. Also, as far as we're concerned, light only knowingly exists where an interaction manifests. I don't know. I mean, obviously you can't see light until it hits something. So you can't ever see a photon. You just see photon. You know. Same thing with electrons. We only know them for their detectable threshold interactions, disturbances, change. Yes, in electrons it's even more dramatic, that most of the time when we can detect something happening, it's because we have detected a chain reaction caused in electrons. It requires us to magnify the electron's response, so it's a multiplier, you know. Photon multipliers are really electron multipliers. So anyway, alright, so then this Case for Reality posted 2 links to just Wikipedia pages on solar flares, and the other one was some other nonsense, so I'm just deleting those. There's no argument included. Lens flares and solar flares. How are these relevant concepts? What do they prove about anything discussed? The solar flares are not bright enough to ruin the Hubble telescope, so that really can't be an argument. And clearly the Hubble telescope can probably see lensing without getting that close to the surface of the sun. So that's a bogus. Look, you know, this whole argument, they could put a 15-inch, I mean, you know, the guy used a portable telescope to look at the eclipse to see the lensing. A portable telescope in the atmosphere. You could put a portable telescope, you could spend $2,000, let's say, and buy a nice telescope and put it in the shuttle, in the bay. You could put it at the International Space Station and look out the window. I mean, the fact is this is so easy to duplicate from space, because you eliminate the entire problem that required you to do it while there were eclipses. All the scatter is gone, and now you get a clear view of black space right next to the sun. So I'm just saying, if you're worried about the poor little Hubble hurting its eyeball, put a $2,000 telescope right next to the Hubble, you know, with a little Sony camera on it, if you're that concerned. Because you don't need a huge telescope. You didn't need a huge telescope on Earth to see it. Fucking cunts. This is just so desperate. Alright, Case for Reality. I just found out I can link to the site I wanted, so let me direct you to a great alternative source of information which you might not be aware of. So you post a link to something called Imify.com, which is just a meta search engine, which means it's a fake search engine. It just takes the results from, like, there's only like 2-3 other search engines that are real. Yahoo doesn't even use its own results. It just uses Google results. Microsoft has an actual search engine, but it's sort of a piece of shit. You know, bling. So these are just stolen, essentially, search results. It's not a real search engine. Hey, post that fucking spam. So yeah, yeah. I'm gonna block them. Fuck it. I'll delete that piece of shit. So he links to a search engine. What the fuck? What kind of retard is this? Why don't you link to DuckDuckGo? That's another meta fake search engine. Anyway, case for reality. No, you don't pay attention. You said none of the time measurements were consistent. What are you talking about? Those were your fucking words, asshole. What time measures? What did I say? None of the time measurements were consistent. Where did I use a sentence like that? What are you talking about? How am I supposed to know what's the relevance of that? No, you don't pay attention. You said none of the time measurements were consistent. What time measurements are you talking about? Oh, you're a fucking idiot. Alright, case for reality. How come you can shine a laser through a two-way mirror and it doesn't destroy the beam? What do you mean, destroy the beam? I said it would diffract it, just like the fucking gradient. Just like this piece of film. It will create dots. And the dots will be in all scattered locations at the same distance, usually. Pretty much, just because you're shining a beam that's very small. So you pretty much guarantee that it'll sort of come out ring-like because all of the dots will be the same distance but at different vectors. And so you're basically just doing two slit experiments all twisty. Bunch of two slit experiments but all turned at different angles. That's what Newton's rings is, by the way. Newton's rings is a two slit experiment done in all 180 degrees. Einstein. Oh, fuck. I guess you mean you're lying about the experiment, making you a despicable liar. So again, I'm not going to tolerate that. So obviously I haven't lied about anything. So I don't have anything to argue here. I asked you, have you shown a light through a two-way mirror to demonstrate that it doesn't diffract light? Because I don't think it's possible to shine it through anything that has a bunch of little holes in it without the light getting diffracted. Because that's the law. So somebody says, fuck off reality. Yes, he should fuck off. But he will be fucked off. This is getting dumber and dumber now. I mean, you can't even tell what the fuck he's talking about. Alright, for the record, you're still lying. I'm not lying. About how the fringes work. What part of what I said about fringes is a lie. You can almost see this in the, I went looking for the Young experiment when I was doing my two-slit research, and I did see an image of what what was drawn, a drawing of the Young results, and it looked like a bunch of suns, okay, except with the separation, a little bit of blue. So it looked like a bunch of images of the sun, and they're just having their spectrum separated, prismed. And I did think that was kind of curious. So yeah, it was a far cry from any of the patterns you get now, where you have the pattern on top of a pattern and all that stuff. The original Young experiment was done with sunlight in a box. It was, very crude. And but anyway, I did find that curious because that's what it had the appearance back then, to me, of being images of the sun. Not circles of light, but actual images of the sun. And that's what I think the whole thing is. It sort of gave itself away. If people actually looked at the original Young experiment, they'd say, hey, those look like little images of the sun. Alright. For the record, you're still lying. So I don't lie about anything. If you're going to say I'm a liar, then prove it. Okay? I've proven you people being dishonest. In just what you say, I've said. It's a lie. I didn't say it. You just keep saying things that are a misrepresentation of my argument. A gross misrepresentation. For the record, you're still lying about how the fringes work and what they're measuring. So again, I'm just going based on what I read of Michelson-Morley. They used white light. They were comparing the separation fringes created and what was creating them. that would be the argument. And obviously what was creating them was the only thing that could be creating them, which is the beam splitter. They could have done MM with 2 light sources and the fringes would have appeared. So why didn't they? I mean, that would simplify things an awful lot, wouldn't it, if you didn't have to use a beam splitter? Yeah, I mean, that just makes the experiment a whole lot easier. A whole lot simpler in terms of mechanical difficulty. So, does that make any sense to any of you people? They could have just said, forget about doing this beam splitting stuff, just shine a light both ways. But changes over time in the pattern could be due to random fluctuations. They weren't measuring changes over time, they were measuring changes every second. So they could use the same light source. Or, well, whatever. If that makes any sense to anybody, fine. Doesn't make any sense to me. Again, the experiment looking for changes over time in the pattern, they turned the experiment. Michelson-Morley. So even if you accept the dumb objections about Heisenberg, so again, it's a dumb objection to point out that the whole principle about the slit thing is that you can't, the more narrow you make the slit, the more precise information you have about a photon's location, and therefore you have less precise information about where it's going. That the two are inversely connected. And so you're arguing against Heisenberg being a law or a rule or a principle. Now that's okay with me, that's fine. If you want to agree with me that that's Heisenberg's shit is a pile of crap, that there's no absolute law regarding any of this. But there is a coincidental law in the sense that the slit material actually does create more diffraction. As you make the slits tighter, the odds of the photon going next to the slit material is more and more likely, and that likelihood creates more diffraction. But anyway, I'm glad you're insulting Heisenberg. Good for you. So even if you accept the dumb objections about Heisenberg, which have nothing to do with the issue. So again, he's saying how small you make a slit has nothing to do with Heisenberg. When it's what's given as one of the proofs of Heisenberg is the fact that the smaller you make the slit, the more information you have about the location of the photon, and therefore you can't predict where the photon will go. We have less information regarding predicting location of destination. I'm just saying irrational garbage. We just say he's a troll, doesn't matter, okay, fine. You're a very bad advocate for science because a physicist wouldn't say anything that stupid. Okay. Has nothing to do with the issue. Yes, it's fundamental to the issue. It would be moot. Again, it's one of the most fundamental rules is that you can't create a tiny aperture and then have a straight photon go through. Because if you could, then we could filter photons, and again, then we would be able to do all kinds of really precise experiments. You could create a microscope of visible light that actually worked. A visible light microscope would actually be able to see much, much smaller things. You wouldn't have to use an electron microscope. Idiot. Let's see. Also, you and Casey Anthony, whoever that is, should get together because you both think alike. Well, I don't know who that is, but I guess I'll copy the name, but I doubt me and Casey agree on anything. But is it bizarre to you, as it is to me, that somebody would think I would know who Casey Anthony is? Like this is some famous person or something? Oh, let's look it up now. I mean, I don't think I'm going to get a dramatic response from Google putting the name Casey Anthony in. I think I'm going to get a bunch of losers. Let's see. On October 14th, 2008, Casey Anthony was indicted? No, by a grand jury on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, and aggravated manslaughter of a child, and 4 counts of providing false information to police. Well, that's just so important after you kill kids and stuff. It's just really important to include those counts of lying. She was later arrested, after she was indicted. Yeah, so I guess that makes sense. So anyway, what does this have to do with anything? Oh, that's right. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. Yes, you are now double blocked. Yeah, fuck you. What a useless tripe that was. Alright, so some idiot called Tedenlap, 72. Did you make that mop-looking dog hair you have on your head yourself? Well, yes, my physical body made it. So I guess you're just not into the long hair thing. So it's like all the guys in like Lord of the Rings, they were really faggoty and useless because they had long hair, huh? Yeah. I mean, you can go through almost like all the great movies that have people with long hair in them, and somehow you think it's a weird thing to do. Mr. Baldy? Yes, of course you do, because you're fat and bald. Mr. Wheeler is brilliant. No, he's insane. He's onto something. What? You're not. The only thing he's onto is by his own admission, is digging up 4,000-year-old knowledge and recuperating it, just dusting it off, because it's really important that we start making square reels again. An idiot. Alright, 7 minutes into your vid. Make a flat coil EM. Then the poles are both at the same point. You can't make the poles at the same point, retard. You don't have a monopole. There's no monopoles except electrons and protons. They're monopoles. Idiot. Alright, I can't even watch anymore. Yes, why I'm having a hard time looking anymore. You lost all cred. Yeah, well, dude, you're dumb. You cut a magnet in half. Guess what? It's still a dipole magnet. Well, where did I say anything else? Idiot. Did I say something else somewhere? No, I didn't. Go all the way down as far as you like. Yes, I already explained that. The magnet is a bunch of little magnets inside. That's what the atoms are doing, is making little magnets inside. Still isn't a monopole. And again, who's arguing it would be? Not me. Mr. Wheeler isn't responding because I couldn't even make it through 9 minutes of your ridiculous video. Mr. Wheeler is a ballless, weak shit talker. He doesn't respond to anyone he slanders. He just kicks dead people. He's that big a pussy. He's afraid to have an argument with a living person. You're trying to regurgitate university science. Not even close. So yeah. Alright, we'll read his last statement and then block him. Just watch the Aura Apopolis, what is a black hole if you want intellect. Yes, sorry, I don't think that's what you're going to get. Yeah, you might get a headache, but that's about it. So, we'll see you, retard. Useless. So many useless comments. Alright, let's see, some new person here, Jody Scott Chandler. About the half-mirrored glass and why you can see things through them even though the beam appears to diffract. Yes, you can still see fine because it's only 5% or 7% or let's see, of all the images, right? The center image has 90% of the light in it. So the first image is okay, 90% of the light, let's say. Let's say 85% just to be safe. The secondary images on both sides are only like 4%. So that's a total of 8%. Then the ones next to that are only 1.5%. So that's only like 3%. So you got 8% plus 3%, so that's like 11%. And so the percentage is going to go down, down. So yes, so the middle image is still 85% of the light. which is a huge dominance in terms of the visibility. So that's why it has to be very bright light for you to see it. If there's images behind it, like say if it's a dark and you just have one lit thing, then you'll see the blue shift really easily. But if there's other competing imagery, yeah, it's going to be less obvious. And certainly with images, which are often equally lit, you're not going to be able to see the 5% image. The 5% image isn't going to be bright enough for you to see it. Okay. Maybe image resolved through a see-through mirror simply because we can resolve incomplete resolutions of images. Well, clearly, we do that. I mean, that's one of the fact is you're not going to see as much detail. You're not going to have high resolution. You're not going to be able to take a high resolution image through a 50-50 mirror glass. It's not going to be a very good image. A photographer wouldn't want to do photography through a piece of half-mirrored glass. So yes, obviously there's enough pixels to fill in the blanks, so to speak, but there's not going to be any, as Ken Wheeler would say, not much micro contrast. That sounds redundant, but what I'm saying is you don't need anything other than what you observe with the laser to explain it. Well, I think explaining it, you need more than just pointing a laser and saying, look, this is what a beam of light does. But yes, the point is the beam of light is very bright. That's why it makes it all so obvious. But if it wasn't bright, it wouldn't be at all obvious. Alright, the fact that you can see the image at all would still make sense when you shine the laser through it. The brightest dot is obviously the middle one, right, and it's the one undisturbed. So the middle beam doesn't get separated into the primary colors. The other fake images do. the fake images. That's funny. The bent ones. The refracted ones, technically, because that's how we're seeing them. We're seeing them in the wrong location. They should be in the center. We're seeing them in the wrong location because of refraction. Alright. So it's like seeing a fish in the water. And you see the fish in one place, but the fish is actually a foot lower. That kind of thing. Okay, so if you apply the observation to an image, most of the image, like most of the laser beam going to the middle, is getting to where it would have to be for our eye to focus it into an intelligible image. So it's not really a focus problem. They're all at the same focal length. It's just a brightness issue. Enough of it goes straight. Well, it's not just brightness. It's also with a high number of diffraction lines in the gradient. It's a very broad angle, actually. It's like 15 degrees. So the secondary image is shooting off at 15 degrees, which means you can't see it, if you're too close. So you have to create distance so you can see it. So you widen the field of view. Let's see, sounds okay. We did the redundant part. Most of the image, like most of the laser beam going to the middle, getting to where it would have to be for our eye to focus it into an intelligible image. Enough of it goes straight through. Enough of it goes straight enough for us to see it as relatively coherent. Clearly, there is some diffraction, and you even kind of tell when you look through it. Right. Well, what I'm saying is having looked at it in person, you can actually see that the entire image of the film, everything that goes into this piece of film, creates a secondary image. of everything that went in. So it's everything. It's just broadcasting a second image in the wrong location. So it's like a certain number of pixels from every single location, 5% or whatever. 5% of the pixels that go anywhere end up over here. Okay. Alright, when you look through it, it isn't perfect and is actually some perceivable blurriness, not just dimness because of the half mirror. Well, it's also got a lot of fingerprints on it. Yes, clearly it's a degraded image, but that's the lines that are probably eating up most of that. It's not the diffraction that's causing that. It's probably most of the, half the deterioration in the image is probably the photons that never get through the medium in a coherent manner. They hit the lines. They hit the slit material, if you want to put it that way. Okay, even in your video, maybe you don't observe the relative blurriness as readily because your eyesight isn't as sharp as it used to be. Yeah, well, that's true. I don't think images are unaffected, and you don't need to separate theory or observation from what you saw with the laser to explain it, because you can see. Yeah, well, like I said, there's two factors that are diminishing the image. The first one is, okay, we know that some number of the photons, 15% of them, are going the wrong place and creating the fake images. I mean, the extra images. And then the lines that are actually made in the plastic aren't diffracting light in any particularly coherent way. They're reflecting light, so some of it's reflecting. It's certainly more than 4 or 5% reflection. It's very reflective for a piece of plastic. So yeah, you're ending up with a 70%, 60%. It doesn't look like, it looks better than 60%, to tell you the truth. So it looks like a 70 at least. At least. So you're only killing, let's say, 25% of the image with all of the things that are degrading the image. Alright. Let's see. Because you can see the laser is still resolving mostly at the center in spite of the observable diffraction. Right, well that's just the two-slit rule, in the sense that the same thing happens in the single slit and the double slit experiment. The center, most of the light goes straight through the slit without getting bent at all. So that's the general rule, is that most of the light is unaffected. Alright. I could be totally wrong about that, but it's just what I noticed. I just compounded on top of what you've noticed. Not a bad noticing, I'm just saying I think you have to be a little more specific, and I think I helped. Probably. Alright, anyway, another comment, same guy, Jody Scott Chandler. And as for the not very well thought out comment the gentleman made about a light mill being proof against something you never said, I don't know what that is exactly. I believe he thought you said light carried no momentum. Ah, yes, well, there's no way to think I ever said that. All I've said is light can't carry more than one momentum. And that he could disprove this by showing how light will move veins of paper that are colored white on one side and black on the other. Well, I only in just principle argued that doesn't work anyway. I agree that light has momentum. I'm just saying you really can't detect it with that crude a mechanism. Is it really doesn't work. But anyway, you're sort of both right. Well, anyway, I think you're right that the constant speed of light firmly implies that you can never truly add or subtract momentum from it. Right, you have to, technically, a reflection and an absorption equal the same thing, force-wise. So you you can't get you can't get free energy unless you filter light. You can't just use it like that. Well, free energy in the sense of turning something. You can push something, one thing, but that's it. You can't turn something. It can sometimes appear that you can, but there are great theories that explain why it isn't actually happening. Example, why light in a medium like glass isn't technically moving slower through the glass and then speeding up again when it exits the glass is fairly well understood. Well, it's fairly well understood by people who have gone to the trouble to understand kind of technical explanations, and clearly most of these people don't want to be bothered with that, like the Ken Wheeler types, and they'll make this silly argument that somehow the light slows down and then it puts it back in fifth gear and goes fast again. I mean, that is childishly ignorant. I mean, it's just childish. And you're right that the normal light mill doesn't work because of the momentum of light, but actually because the thermodynamics of what happens when air at the edges of the vanes due to the heat generated by the absorption on the black side. Well, I'm just saying that you have to create something that's like a catalyst that creates some kind of extra that makes something turn. Something has to add value to the photon. It has to contribute to its meaning on one side versus the hitting on the other side, because the two are exactly the same. Like I said, an absorption and a reflection are the same thing. At the same time, though, it's been proven that with good enough vacuum and minimal amount of friction involved, light radiation will turn the vanes of a light mill in the opposite direction that the thermodynamic effect will produce in a more poorly constructed light mill with less of a vacuum and more friction. Yeah, I'm just saying that I'm still saying that that's still dependent on some kind of chemistry, electrical effect, whatever you want to call it, something. Because theoretically, the photon is held as potential energy on one side. So it's like charging a battery. So you might argue that one side gets more massive. And so technically if you held the thing, I'm just trying to think, maybe you could use gravity as an excuse or some other mechanism. But I don't think its mass alone could make it turn. But anyway, it's a subtle bit of physics. I can't say for absolute positive. But my general impression is that you'll lose when you absorb the photon, you're going to technically lose it as charge or electromagnetic radiation. And so it's going to be the same as a reflection. So in theory, I'm still saying it's got to be dependent on some other mechanism. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I've seen them spinning, so they obviously do spin. So there's got to be a reason for that that's obvious. But it's not obvious what that reason would be. I have to look it up again. It's been a while. I think Thunderfoot had a video on it. Maybe I'll go look that up. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I really want to. Because I do have, it seems to me, much more important things to take care of. but on these subjects. But anyway. So anyway. Suitable comment. So I will reload the page just to see if there's anything new. Let's see. How much meth have you smoked today, bro? I don't know. Brilliant question. Gene Ruffiello. He looks like a drug addict, which is hilarious. I mean, shouldn't be commenting on other people when you look like that. All those squirrely eyes. But yeah, really brilliant comment, man. Dude, you're so cool. Not really. Michael Francis, thank you. You've made a new fan. Arrogance is a display of ignorance. Well, I don't think that's true. You know, you can be arrogant all you want if you're right. If you're fucking right, you win, Buster. Yeah. Cool. But be arrogant and wrong? Oh, that's really putrid. I have no tolerance for arrogance. Every time I explain something, the real genius is explaining something to someone and having them understand. Well, you know, it's sort of true. Being able to explain something is a talent and an art, and it's like telling a good story. So, but clearly so many lies have been told to people. Little, you know, lumpy dumpty stories, you know, about fat people in Britain. And, you know, people are just so full of bullshit stories that are very well told, but they're just shit. So having somebody be persuaded isn't really the objective. The objective is to have the truth win. So then I let them tell me I'm correct. No arrogance needed. I don't know what that means, but so in saying that, you're right. I got it. Wink. I don't know. Well, whatever. That will be my response. Whatever. Okay, so I guess we're done. Alright. So, got another tedious half-a-day video to get through. And then, you know, like I said, you know, I have to start making some documentary videos, but this whole two-slit image thing has got me thinking. You know, this might be fruitful, so I will work on that. Do some thinking. When I can get the hobgoblins out of my head. I try every night when I go to sleep, you know, to seed my brain and say, come on, do some physics. And it used to work. But the last week, my brain keeps seeing seaweed with big teeth and stuff, and it's like a whole bunch of seaweed on either side of me, and it's all trying to bite me and shit, and you know, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's interesting. But yeah, I say, this isn't physics, it's seaweed. You know, it just irritates me because it's not, you know, I'm not getting anything done. I'm just thinking about bright colored squiddy seaweed things with teeth. Anyway, not really important information. So, till the next time, which will probably have something to do with this dopey pile of turd. Yes, another hour worth. Wow. But anyway.